December 20th, 1944. The Ardennes forest was frozen solid, silent in a way that made even experienced soldiers uneasy. Snow drifted slowly through the air as a German captain pressed his binoculars against his face, watching something that made no sense to him. Just 200 meters ahead, 12 American soldiers were pinned down behind a railway embankment. He had already counted them. He knew their officer was dead. He had seen the moment himself, the lieutenant collapsing into the snow, cut down by machine gun fire. By every rule he had ever been taught, those 12 men should have broken by now. They should have retreated, surrendered, or frozen in place, waiting for orders that would never come. But they didn't. Instead, they moved. Quietly, smoothly, almost like they were thinking with one mind. No shouting, no visible leader, no radio, and yet they were reorganizing. One group slipped into a ditch and disappeared. Another shifted position and opened fire from an unexpected angle. A soldier crawled back, signaled silently, and a machine gunner repositioned perfectly. It wasn't chaos, it was something else, something far more dangerous. The captain lowered his binoculars slowly, confusion written across his face. "Who is commanding these men?" he asked, but there was no answer. Because the truth was something he had never been trained to understand. No one was commanding them, and everyone was. What he was witnessing was not a tactic, it was a mindset, and it had already begun to change the war. To understand this moment, you have to go back, not to D-Day, but over a century earlier, when the Prussian army learned a brutal lesson against Napoleon. They realized something simple but powerful: rigid armies lose. Thinking soldiers win. So they built a doctrine called mission tactics. Give the objective, not the instructions. Trust the soldier to figure it out. And for decades, that idea made the German army unstoppable. But by 1944, something had changed. The system that once created independent thinkers had started collapsing under its own weight. Experienced leaders were dead, replacements were rushed, and fear had replaced trust. Soldiers began waiting again, waiting for orders, waiting for permission, waiting while the battlefield kept moving without them. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening on the other side. The American army had never formally mastered this doctrine. They didn't write it, they didn't teach it perfectly. But somehow, they lived it. On June 6, 1944, Omaha Beach turned into pure chaos. Within minutes, entire units lost their officers. The chain of command was gone. By every expectation, the soldiers should have collapsed. But they didn't. Instead, something remarkable happened. Small groups of men, sometimes just 2 or 3, started making decisions on their own. A lieutenant charged a machine gun position without orders. A private ran into gunfire again and again to pull wounded men to safety. Another soldier stood up under fire and shouted, "We're dying here. Let's move forward instead." And others followed. No rank, no orders, just instinct, just action, just a decision that someone had to do something, and that someone was going to be them. It wasn't discipline that drove them forward. It was something deeper, something they had learned long before they ever wore a uniform. Back home, these men had grown up solving problems on their own, fixing machines, building things, making decisions without waiting for permission. And now, in the middle of war, that same instinct took over. The battlefield didn't break them, it activated them. Weeks later, in the hedgerows of Normandy, German soldiers started reporting something strange. American units weren't following patterns. They attacked from unexpected angles. They appeared where they shouldn't be. They adapted faster than anyone could predict. And the most confusing part? Sometimes the decisions weren't even coming from officers. Sometimes they came from a private, a single soldier seeing an opportunity and acting on it instantly. There was no visible command structure, no predictable logic, just results. And those results were deadly. Even solutions to impossible problems came from unexpected places. One American sergeant looked at the deadly hedgerows trapping their advance and didn't wait for engineers or orders. He built a solution himself, metal prongs welded onto tanks to break through the barriers. Within days, hundreds of tanks were using his idea. A single man changed the battlefield, not because he was told to, but because he believed he could. Meanwhile, the German army, the very creators of flexible warfare, had become rigid. Orders had to be followed exactly. Initiative was punished, trust had disappeared, and without trust, their system stopped working. By the time the Battle of the Bulge began, the difference was clear. American soldiers moved freely, thinking, adapting, reacting faster than any command system could control. German soldiers hesitated, waited, second-guessed. And in war, hesitation is death. Later, when captured German generals were secretly recorded, they admitted something they never said publicly. They couldn't understand the Americans. They weren't better trained. They weren't more disciplined. But they were different. They were individuals. They argued. They joked. They didn't behave like traditional soldiers. And yet, in battle, they had something the Germans couldn't explain. An instinct. A natural ability to act without being told. To decide without waiting. To move without fear of being wrong. And that changed everything. So when that German captain stood in the snow and asked, "Who is commanding these men?" the real answer was something far beyond rank or structure. The man in charge was the soldier on the left, and the soldier on the right, and the one crawling through the ditch, and the one still firing despite being wounded. Every single one of them was the leader in that moment. Not because they were ordered to be, but because they chose to be. And that was the secret no enemy could break. Because it wasn't written in a manual. It wasn't taught in a classroom. It was built into who they were long before the war ever began. And in the end, that's what made the difference. Not just weapons. Not just strategy, but ordinary men making extraordinary decisions in the moments that mattered most. And those are the moments history never forgets.